This is All India Radio. We now bring you Radioscope, the national science magazine. In this edition, we have for you news from the world of science and technology, the Kolkata connection of an epoch-making theory of Professor Stephen Hawking, interviews from the 105th session of the Indian Science Congress, an exclusive interview with Nobel laureate Wolfgang Kötterle, and finally an absorbing dialogue on artificial intelligence. We start off with some science news.
We all know that biological tissues have complex mechanical properties. These are soft yet strong and tough yet flexible. It is not an easy task to reproduce these tissues using synthetic materials. Recently, an international team has reported to have produced a biocompatible synthetic material that replicates tissue mechanics and alters color when it changes shape, just like chameleon skin. The scientists have achieved this with a unique formulation called a tri-block copolymer. They have synthesized a physically cross-linked elastomer composed of a central block onto which side chains are grafted. It looks almost like a bottle brush. There are also linear terminal blocks at each end. The researchers have found that by carefully selecting the polymer's structural parameters, the material followed the same strain curve as a biological tissue, in this case, pig skin. It is also biocompatible since it does not require additives. Researchers from CNRS, Université de Haute-Alsace, and ESRF, the European Synchrotron, have contributed to this achievement. Scientists from the University of North Carolina and Chapel Hill and the University of Akron, both in the US, also took part in this collaborative research. The results of the research promises new materials for biomedical devices.
After that science news, it's time to take a look at the Kolkata connection of an epoch-making theory propounded by Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose. The world was left poorer with the passing away of Professor Stephen Hawking, who carved out a space for himself in the area of astrophysics with his outstanding theories on black holes and the formation of the universe. Deeply touching obituaries have been written since his death on 14th March. But only a handful of those took care to mention the name of Professor Amol Roy Choudhury, without whose contributions Hawking would not have been able to design his theory. Those who wrote about Hawking probably haven't heard the name of this little-known physicist from India. He did his research at the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, fighting against several odds. Shondeep Chakraborty, Senior Professor of Astrophysics at the S.N. Bose National Centre for Basic Sciences in Kolkata, had the opportunity to speak to both Hawking and Roy Choudhury on their field of research. In an exclusive bite, he recounts how Roy Choudhury's equation influenced the work of Penrose and Hawking.
Stephen Hawking actually heard the lecture of Penrose, that how matter collapses into a black hole. There is something called a congruence of matter, a collection of matter in a very curved space-time, how they actually come together and ultimately they reach the end of space. That is called singularity. Now after that, Hawking actually felt if the matter can go and make a singularity, then matter may as well come out of a singularity. So he started giving the theorem, same singularity theorem, but now it is applicable to formation of the universe. So Hawking's theorem is the formation of the universe, singularity theorem, and the Penrose's theorem was formation of a black hole singularity. Now in both the cases, they talked about the motion of large number of particles in a curved space-time and the relation of one particle with respect to the other. This relationship was actually first found by Amol Kumar Roy Choudhury through the Roy Choudhury equation. What he said is that if I take a large collection of particles in a curved space-time and if there is a shear and expansion or contraction, then how they will behave. This equation got published in 1955, whereas 1965 Penrose gave the theorem, and it took another few years for Hawking to also come up with the singularity theorem. So both of their theorems, their basis is the Raychaudhuri equation, where Raychaudhuri has actually written down how matter in curved space-time will move one in relation to another. And they may or may not join into a singularity, they may or may not come out of a singularity, but his equations are very general. And then Hawking and Penrose both applied that equation into a situation where all the null congruences are either converging or diverging.
You are listening to Professor Shondeep Chakraborty explaining how theories of Roger Penrose and Stephen Hawking are connected with the famous equation given by Professor Amol Roychaudhuri. You are tuned to Radioscope. The 105th session of the Indian Science Congress was held this year at Manipur Central University at Imphal from 16th to the 20th of March. Representatives of All India Radio, Laishram Shamarjit and Laishram Chingsanglakpa used the opportunity to interview a few scientists who were honored on the occasion. Dr. Chandrasekhar, director of the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, was conferred the C.V. Raman Medal in recognition of his work. He spoke to us after receiving the award.
C.V. Raman Medal is given to me for the contributions I have done in the synthesis of natural products and also affordable healthcare. We made a lot of generic drugs which are very expensive elsewhere. So we made economically viable routes that any Indian pharmaceutical industry can make them and make available to Indian population at the cheap cost.
What is the mechanism that you have devised to get your products available to the common people? And what impact do you expect from those products that you are working on?
Whenever a company discovers a drug, they get patent for about 20 years. So when the patent is there, other companies cannot make these drugs. So these discovery companies sell the drugs at very high price. As soon as the patent is over, Indian pharma companies will start making them as generics by following a slightly different route and cheaper chemicals they use, but make the same chemical. And then these drugs are available at the very affordable cost, not only to India, but also to Africa.
What memory you'll take back home after getting this medal here in Imphal?
More than medal, I'm so excited to be part of the Northeast. IICT also does many programs for the Northeast. So every year about 35-40 students from Northeast universities will come to IICT for about 90 days, a 3-month program where we train them for preparing for the national exam so that they can do PhD and become scientists like me.
The Homi Bhabha Memorial Award was conferred on Dr. Prakash Chand Jain, a senior scientist at the Defence Research and Development Organization.
Getting recognition for our scientific work is really a great pleasure. It motivates for the future. It gives inspiration that some much more has to be achieved.
On which work you have been recognized with this award?
Well, my work is in the areas of structural design, where we design the structures to carry the environmental loads. So how do the optimum structures comes out from the existing conventional designs? So coming out with the very economical designs, robust designs, this is what makes my work important in the area of aerospace engineering.
Shaila H. Kopad, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Application, RV College of Engineering at Bangalore, was a recipient of Young Scientists Awards.
My topic was on the development of the framework for prevalence and analysis of the COPD patients, where I'm using big data analytics to analyze the patients here. The main thing for analysis of the patient here, we are taking the reference key as a Aadhaar card, and through that Aadhaar card reference, we can track whether the patient has been taken treatment in any other hospitals, whether he has been suffered from any other disease, because it is necessary for the doctor to understand what is the clinical history of the patient previously and what was the previous day's treatment he has taken. And chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is a one which is a non-preventable disease, and it is very difficult to identify the disease, since differentiation between the asthma and the COPD is difficult. So because of that, clinical history of the patient is necessary, because the patient might get a fever, cold and all, and after 6 months he might get it again. So he might hide it from the doctors. So it has to be brought into the notice of the doctor that from the past 3 years or past 6 years, frequently he's been suffered from the fever and all, and he's been taking treatment. And after that, the doctor can analyze that by his clinical history, and he can be told to undergo the tests. So that is the one basic key which is being taken to track the patient.
You just listened to interviews of scientists recorded at the 105th session of Indian Science Congress held at Imphal. You are tuned to Radioscope. Wolfgang Kötterle is a German physicist and professor of physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. His research has focused on experiments that trap and cool atoms to temperatures close to absolute zero. He also led one of the first groups to realize Bose-Einstein condensation in the system in 1995. For this achievement, as well as early fundamental studies of condensed states, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2001, together with Eric Alan Cornell and Carl Weckmann. We caught up with Professor Kötterle when he arrived in Kolkata on the invitation of the S.N. Bose National Centre for Basic Sciences to deliver a special lecture on the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Shrotendranath Bose, the discoverer of boson particles. We now bring you this interview where he speaks on a range of issues concerning his area of research. Your interviewer is Dr. Manush Protim Das.
Professor Kötterle, for our listeners who might have heard about condensed matter physics and might not have heard about Bose-Einstein condensate, I'd like to put this question to him. What words would you explain this thing, this BEC, this condensate?
The Bose-Einstein condensate is a form of matter which happens when we cool certain atoms to very low temperature. So in principle it's very easy. Take a gas of atoms to very low temperature and then it can form a Bose-Einstein condensate. The Bose-Einstein condensate is characterized by the fact that the atoms literally march in lockstep. They form one big matter wave, so they act in concert. Therefore, they have the property of superfluidity. I can compare the phenomenon of Bose-Einstein condensation with the phenomenon of the laser, of light. You are all familiar with the major difference between the light which comes from an ordinary light bulb and the light which comes from a laser beam. The light from the laser beam is coherent, directional, it has many special properties. But exactly how you would explain the difference between laser light and ordinary light, you would explain the difference between ordinary atoms and the Bose-Einstein condensate. So if you want to know in one sentence what the Bose-Einstein condensate is, it is matter with the properties of laser light. It's laser-like matter.
Professor Kötterle, helium showed us the superfluid properties. Is it unique to helium or it could be done with any other fluid or liquid?
Well, for many, many decades, superfluidity was really unique to helium. First helium-4 and then later helium-3, the other isotope. But now, with Bose-Einstein condensation, we have added many other atoms which have been cooled to the superfluid state. So we have now many atomic species, even molecules, which have formed the Bose-Einstein condensate, and all Bose-Einstein condensates have the property of superfluidity.
Now, if one tries to understand superfluidity, what are the properties that he or she should focus on? Is it going beyond an obstacle which a normal fluid is unable to cross, or anything more than that?
Well, the important feature of superfluidity is that there is no resistance, no dissipation. So I would explain superfluidity in a way, assume you have a cup of tea, but the tea is superfluid. You could take a spoon and stir it up, and then the superfluid would go in a circle, would go around forever. It would form a persistent rotation. So this shows that you have now a fluid which can flow without any viscosity and without any dissipation. This is really kind of nice, and it's nice to think about it, but this has real practical applications in the form of superconductors. The superconductivity can be defined as it is superfluidity of charged particles, in that case of electrons, actually electron pairs. So if you have superfluid electrons, they can now create electrical currents which are persistent, which have no resistance, no ohmic resistance, no dissipation. And what I just mentioned with a cup of tea is reality in the form of solenoids. If you have a solenoid which is superconducting, you charge it up with some current, you can take the power supply away and the current is persistent. You have current flowing in a solenoid, creating a magnetic field pretty much forever. And this is used in all the MRI scanners which you find in hospitals. So if you go to the hospital and get an MRI, you get it thanks to, well, superconductivity, which is, as I said, a form of superfluidity.
Sir, ultra-cold atoms, just by listening to the term, it seems that it has a temperature which is beyond normal temperatures, even normal cold temperatures. So to a layperson, how do you explain ultra-cold atoms? At what stage are they belonging?
Okay, in order to explain ultra-cold atoms, I have to refer to the Kelvin scale of temperature, the absolute temperature. In this Kelvin scale, absolute zero is at 0 degrees Kelvin. This is when matter has lost all its energies, when atoms come to a standstill. And it's obvious, if at 0 degree Kelvin everything comes to a standstill, it's not possible to have an even lower temperature, because you cannot have less kinetic energy than no kinetic energy. So anyway, on the absolute, using the absolute temperature and the Kelvin scale, I would explain it in the following way. Room temperature is 300 Kelvin, and that's a measure for the kinetic energy of the molecules in air and in the environment. Now, if you go to interstellar space, which is really cold, no human being could survive in interstellar space without special protection. Interstellar space has a temperature of 2.8 Kelvin, which is the remnant of the Big Bang. So going to interstellar space is 100 times colder than room temperature. At the same temperature, actually in 4 Kelvin, helium becomes liquefied, and at 2 Kelvin, helium becomes superfluid. So all these phenomena, interstellar space and helium superfluidity, and also several superconducting materials occur when we change the temperature, the absolute temperature or kinetic energy from room temperature by a factor of 100. In our laboratory, Bose-Einstein condensates are usually produced at 100 nanokelvin. So for that, we have to go another factor of 10 million times lower. So in other words, on this scale, when we think in powers of 10, the step to superfluid helium, the step to interstellar space is just 2 powers of 10, but to go down to the range of ultra-cold atoms is 9 powers of 10. So this shows how cold we are. It's more than 1 million times colder than interstellar space and superfluid helium.
So just like we haven't yet realized superconductivity in our day-to-day business, ultra-cold atoms are still in the theoretical domain. I mean, you have achieved it, but you are not possibly in a position to apply it for our day-to-day use. Could it be used in the near future for human welfare? How do you see it?
The near future applications of cold atoms is in the area of precision measurements. If you have cold atoms, you can look at atoms much more precisely. And the most important application of this is in the form of atomic clocks. Precision timekeeping is important for the global positioning system, is important for synchronization of communication, may even be used for geological explorations in the future.
Thank you, Professor Katuli.
You were listening to an interview with Nobel laureate Professor Wolfgang Kötterle. Next in Radioscope, we bring you a dialogue. And imagine one over cups of coffee between two academicians. One of them is Professor of Computer Science and the other a Professor of Philosophy. The topic is fascinating to say the least. It is artificial intelligence, so let us listen.
Stop it, Aditya. That's too much. Come on. You are a professor of computer science, not a science fiction writer.
I am serious, Rajiv. Okay, forget it. Tell me, what is the difference between leaves and a car?
What?
One you brush and rake, the other you rush and break.
That's funny.
What do you give to an injured lemon? A lemonade. You know what the funniest part is? These jokes were not made by humans.
What do you mean?
These were created by machines through algorithms. It's called computational humor. There is a program called Joke Analysis and Production Engine, or JAP.
Really?
Not only jokes. Let me read you a poem written by a certain computer program. Just a minute. Yes, here it is. Beams of the dawn at the angel, with a calm, silent sea. With 100 times we write, with a chance we can open up. A steady rhythm in his face, silent room, desolate beach, scattering remains of love.
Wow. I could imagine advanced machine, faster, more accurate, but after all stupid. But a joke-making, poem-writing machine.
That's artificial intelligence for you.
Haha. Here it comes. The famed AI. The name I've been hearing from every nook and corner for the last few years.
It may be last few years for you, but it actually started long back.
Is that so?
The first work that is now generally recognized as AI dates back to 1943, when Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts designed a model of artificial neurons. I hope you know what a neuron or nerve cell is?
Yes, it's the basic unit of the nervous system.
Right.
What happened next?
Formal AI research was born in 1956 at Dartmouth College. For several years, the research was going well, but 1974 onwards, it dried up a bit, and so did the funding. It's called AI winter. But as you know, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Again, there was new blood, new ideas, renewed funding, and this time, success as well.
Now, first things first. What exactly is artificial intelligence?
You tell me, what do you mean by intelligence?
The ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills?
Exactly. Machines also learn, apply that knowledge, and do things on their own, not doing only what they are programmed to do. We are trying to impart something into those machines that we have and they don't.
And what is that?
The consciousness, awareness, cognition, the perception of passing time. In a word, we are trying to create machines that have mind. So many fascinating things. Machine learning, cognitive robotics, cybernetics, humanoid robots.
Whoa. Slow down, mate. You're talking to a layman here.
Sorry, I got excited. Actually, the scope for AI is enormous. There is a popular saying, AI is whatever hasn't been done yet.
But I still have my doubts. There's so many myths and rumors around it. It's really hard to separate the fake news from the authentic ones.
Yes, some of the news or the futuristic predictions are mere cock and bull stories. But let me tell you one thing. Some works which might seem utterly absurd today can easily be reality tomorrow. Who can tell? Some years down the line, a robot may quote those famous words by the French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes. I think, therefore I am.
But tell me, the works and possibilities you're talking about, is everything for the future? Or is there anything substantial to show at present?
Oh, there are so many. You name it, And there are uses of AI in some way or the other.
Like?
Drones are being used for aerial inspection, surveillance, rescue operations. Artificial neural networks are used as clinical decision support systems for medical diagnosis. Autopilot is already a thing of past. Self-driving cars are just around the corner.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You must be familiar with Siri.
That smart personal assistant.
Yes, it is based on voice-to-text technology. Man, her voice is so attractive.
Dude, now I understand why you're still single.
I may be alone, but I'm not lonely. And who knows, maybe I will meet my soulmate very soon. Maybe someone like Sophia.
Sophia who?
Sophia, the first humanoid robot to be given citizenship by a country, Saudi Arabia.
That's interesting. But come on, robots cannot do everything. There are some human things. You know what I mean.
The storm is coming, my friend. That's for sure. According to scientists, there will be lot more intimate use of humanoids, even for physical relationship.
Oh my. But what about morality? Ethics? I was reading somewhere, even Stephen Hawking said that the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of this human race.
Now, I was waiting for this question. This should be your favorite area, Mr. Professor of Philosophy. No, jokes apart, when people get such an alluring thing like AI, which can make their lives easy, enjoyable and interesting, not much ethics cross their mind. But don't worry, everything which can raise an ethical question is still more or less at theoretical stage. We don't know how much we will be able to achieve practically.
Only the future holds the key to that secret.
Yes, but I am an optimist, Rajiv. I believe in that song by Carter Family. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Okay, enough talking. Now, time to show you a video. Here it is. What do you see?
Wow. A man and a robot are dancing together?
Yes. I think we humans are born romantic. So why not romance about the future? Let's dream we can dance ourselves to a new era.
Scripted by Deborshi Ghosh. That was an imaginary dialogue where Deborshi Ghosh played the role of the Professor of Computer Science and Shaurya Chaudhary that of the Professor of Philosophy. With this, we conclude our program for today. You were tuned to Radioscope, the National Science Magazine. Narration was rendered by Rishita Mukhopadhyay. The magazine was scripted and produced by Dr. Manush Putim Das. This program was a contribution of our Kolkata station with inputs from AIR Imphal. A presentation of the Central English Features Unit. This broadcast came to you from the Delhi station of All India Radio.